Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Palvisha Nawaz and I am working as project executive at Center for Global and Strategic Studies, Islamabad, on behalf of CGSS and the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia. I would like to welcome our today's guest speaker, Dr. Berlian, our representatives from the Indonesian Embassy, and the participants for our today's session. Our today's speaker, Dr. Berlian, he is the Director of Ideology and Politics from National Resilience Institute, Indonesia. Today, he will be talking about Indonesia's foreign policy and global maritime fulcrum. So, Dr. Berlian, over to you. You're requested to share your knowledge on the given topic with our participants.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, so for the opportunity. This is, I think, very right time for us to share our knowledge. I'm not presenting as if I know everything, but it's a kind of interactive discussion and dialogue. So I will be grateful if I share my knowledge about the theme on Indonesian foreign policy and global maritime fulcrum. So welcome all everybody, my friends. I know you are in a very good health. So I can feel that from your face that you are very healthy and fresh. And I know how is the, and I think the climate in Pakistan is very fruitful and very conducive. So I think you can enjoy during your day with this event. It's very important, I think. So let me just beginning by saying thank you so much for Center for Global Strategic Studies in Islamabad for hosting and organizing these very important events. I think this event is very important to enlarge not only for sharing knowledge about our two countries, but just to get more expanded network in our bilateral cooperation. And secondly, you know that our office, Indonesian National Resilience Institute, is a think tank organization for president. We are conducting and dealing with a lot of issues, domestic and global issues as well, to get acquainted more heavily on how is the policy making process for our foreign policy and our domestic policy as well. So I think we have some similarities between my office and your Center for Global and Strategic Studies of Pakistan, and hopefully will be in the next future will be initiative from both sides, my office and your center, to establish a kind of joint research or conduct of something like policy development project between our two countries through my office and your center, be expanded for the best of our future cooperation, our bilateral cooperation. Okay, so let me start by saying that the theme on Indonesian foreign policy and global maritime fulcrum. There are two variables interconnected between those two variables in one framework. Okay, variable one is foreign policy, and variable two is global maritime fulcrum, and it is a combined concept for our Indonesian geostrategic concept in integrated and comprehensive and holistic perspective toward external and strategic external environment. So foreign policy and global maritime fulcrum is a solidity and integrity of our Indonesian national identity in facing of global dynamics. So you have to underline that is very important to acknowledge. That is far, so our Indonesian foreign policy describes something that a set of ideas and poses that represents the core value of our Indonesian national interest. And our Indonesian foreign policy benchmarks the preferable actions-oriented, program underlining our national goals in the context of strategic external environment. That's the things you have to acknowledge, that is what is Indonesian foreign policy. And our Indonesian foreign policy is always considered a situation within a series of circles in which it plays a geopolitical and geoeconomic roles in the world at large, and in many kind of regions such as Asia Pacific, Indian Ocean, Southwest Pacific, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, or in the ASEAN region. Then, of course, there is, inside our foreign policy, there is an element of our domestic situation. So by combining the external environment and domestic situation, it is interacting each other in all of these geographical context. So these two contexts build a circles which contain a major factor inside in shaping our Indonesian foreign policy, that include our Indonesian domestic situation. So let me begin by our deepening to understand and to comprehend what is the Indonesian foreign policy. And the next question is, what is the principal foundation of Indonesian foreign policy? There are two principal foundations of our Indonesian foreign policy, which is namely independent and active. The policy is independent because Indonesia does not on the side of any single world powers or global powers. We are very neutral and independent. As a matter of principle, so doing it is very compatible with the country's national philosophy and our identity as implied in our ideology is Pancasila. And how about the active in these terms? The foreign policy, our Indonesian foreign policy is active, means that to some extent Indonesia does not maintain passive and reactive standing on Indonesian international issues, but we are more seeking in active participation in any kind of settlement in global issues. In other words, Indonesia's independent and active foreign policy is not kind of a neutral, but we are more non-aligned. We are not neutral policy. It is not a neutral policy, but it is non-aligned policy with superpower in the context of Cold War at that time. But it binds the country not as if that we are only waiting and seeing to what happened in the global spheres, but we are also predicting some the prospect of our global geopolitics in the future. So means that the basic principle of international foreign policy is dealing with the future context in geopolitical spectrum. How is it look like? So means this is very dynamic. This concept is very dynamic, So allowing Indonesia to be more freely in doing many kind of cooperation in any kind of types, any kind of style, any kind of strategy of cooperations. So that's the principal foundation of our Indonesian foreign policy. So then we are asking now, so what is inside content of our Indonesian foreign policy? So our Indonesian foreign policy contain in inside is it's a conduct of the basic of the independent and active foreign policy that is dedicated to our national interest, especially to support our national development in all sphere of life in any kind of sectors for the purpose of establishing a world order, global order for the external environment, how to make a very conducive external environment. Our Indonesian foreign policy is dealing with that, how to reach our global order based on freedom, peace, and social justice. And second content is international relations in our Indonesian policy. Indonesian foreign policy should aim to strengthen international and regional relations and cooperation through various multilateral and regional channels in accordance with our national interest and potential. In this regard, the positive image of our Indonesia abroad should be enhanced, such as by way of any kind of cultural activities, so social activities or economic relations, something like that. So certainly our Indonesian roles in setting international problems, it is underlined in our content of foreign policy, particularly those threatening peace and that is contrary to justice and humanity. So we should continue our struggle for justice and for the sake of humanity by active foreign policy in dealing with such issues. So any international development and changes should be watched carefully in order to get any appropriate steps that can be promptly taken to protect our national stability and development from any kind of possible negative impact. So, but at the same time, international development, they provide opportunity to assist and speed up our national development should be seized and fully exploited. So how to conduct it? So our foreign policy guidelines has been created in such way to fulfill that aim. So, and the next, what is the next content? So Indonesian foreign policy contain our Indonesian international active role in promoting and strengthening friendly relationship and mutually beneficial cooperation with other countries should be intensified. The country's effort to achieve national targets such as realization of the archipelagic principles and expansion of our Indonesian export market also should be continued. In regard to build a new world order based on freedom, peace, and security. So our content in foreign policy also has an effort to be made to strengthen solidarity, global solidarity, and develop a common standing and cooperation especially among developing nations through various international organizations such as UN, ASEAN, Non-Aligned Movement, and Islamic Conference Organization, and IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. So that's the things. And what would be the very preferable next step for the content of our Indonesian foreign policy? There is a very specific objective to build a new world economic order to be taken and to be continued by expanding cooperation with among developing nations to speed up the realization of an international agreement, for example, by agreement on commodities, to remove trade barriers, any kind of restriction imposed by the industrial countries or new advanced countries on the export of developing countries, and broadening our economic and technical cooperation among developing countries. That's The content next for our foreign policy is cooperation, emphasis on economic, social, and cultural cooperation. This is very interesting because it will reinforce our national resilience, our Indonesian national resilience of each member, not only Indonesia but also each member country or neighboring country, and also regional resilience of ASEAN, enhancing the commonalities in effort to build our Southeast Asian, nuclear zone of peace and freedom, neutrality, and prosperity, and also furthermore for greater cooperation. So our foreign policy should be also foster among countries of the South Asia link, especially with South Asia country and ASEAN, linked up also to Southeast Pacific regions. And so next, what is the purpose of our Indonesian foreign policy? So what is the purpose of our Indonesian foreign policy? Yes, okay. You may know that our any kind of country's foreign policy is a reflection of its national aspiration vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So it is a component of the country's geopolitical strategy, actually. So based on these premises, the primary objective of our Indonesian foreign policy are to support national development with priority on economic development as set out in the 5 years development plan, and also to preserve our internal and regional stability conducive to national development, and also to protect the territorial integrity of Indonesia, and to safeguard the people's place in the country. So, but the next question is how to implement our Indonesian foreign policy. So you know that at the beginning of the 21st century, Indonesia has been facing new challenges and opportunity in its international relations, both bilateral, multilateral, and will react to them. So Indonesia will seek to improve its foreign policy behavior by means of both bilateral and multilateral approaches to other countries. More importantly, in accordance with that two approaches, it is suggested that Indonesia, has developed and applied certain strategy very specifically designed to capitalize on the opportunities available and minimize the problem in its foreign relations, and it will continue to do so for the sake of its national interests. Secondly, now Indonesia in Reformation Era, there have been remarkable changes and challenges in the broader Indonesian political spheres. One of the most noteworthy aspects of Indonesian foreign policy in the Reformation Era has been the extent to which it has been shaped by domestic factors, specifically the political climate following the fall of Suharto era has the impact on what is the impact of the fall of Suharto's impact on the foreign policy process. Number one, it opened up greater public scrutiny and criticism. Secondly, it increases the number and weight of foreign policy actors. Next, thirdly, is domestic political economic imperatives influence the choice of our priorities and their implementation. Apart from these challenges, the implementation of our Indonesian foreign policy has had to contend with a rising demand for a greater transparency, a demand expressed through the views of the civil society and within the government's legislative and executive branches. Thirdly, the ultimate of re-emerging Indonesia in international relations will be shaped as much as by by vicinities of its domestic politics and economy, as by the more visible changes in the country's place in the international order. In view of this development and challenges, that Indonesia has had to take a good second look at what is called as Indonesian free and active foreign policy to make a number of necessary adjustments. So that's our way of the implementation of Indonesian foreign policy. So now, come into the Global Maritime Fulcrum. So what is actually why Indonesia initiate the concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum? Because there are three reasons why Indonesia initiate this concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum. Number one is historical spirit. Very long time ago, Indonesia, was enjoying the rising star of the kingdom of Sriwijaya and Majapahit. So, and in the prehistory, in history, in the long time ago. But in 1908, it is the national awakening era where the youngsters of Indonesian generations acknowledge the needs of Indonesian rise against colonialism. So in 1928, we are the young Indonesian generation from various islands at a time realize the needs of commitment to unite with various background of cultures, religions, islands scattered from west to east in one unity. And by the middle of 1945, in August, we were coming in the national independence. We proclaim Indonesian independence, and that is the ultimate momentum for Indonesia as a free country, free from any kind of colonialism. That is the basic modality of Indonesia to continue to exist. So, but how to maintain our existence after independence? So, I think the second reason the second reason why we initiate Global Maritime Fulcrum, because we are geographically widespread islands country with archipelagic geopolitical wide, so we need to unite in one concept, which is archipelagic concept as a vision, archipelagic vision. So it is our standpoint. So, and it is also not also that those two historical and geographical spirit strengthen on the basis of our strong foundation, which is our ideological spirit, namely Pancasila. So it contains unity. It contains spirit of our Indonesian freedom, and our constitution of Undang-Undang Dasar 1945, our national constitutions underline the need to maintain the existence of our national integrity under symbol of Indonesian united in diversity and Indonesian unitary nation of the Republic of Indonesia. So that's three basic modalities concept in ideological spirit. Based on those three background of why Indonesian government initiate this concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum. And then, so what next then? So, of course, that we are, as the largest archipelagic country in the world, we consist of 17,499 islands from Sabang to Merauke. Not only it has a very large number of islands, but it also has 3.25 million square meters water territorial, plus our economic exclusive zone is about 2.5 million kilometers, so making it water territory larger than the land. You can imagine that. So we are very big water territory in the world. And also because we realized that our Indonesia has a very strategic location in Malacca Strait between Malaysia and Indonesia, so which is intersection of both maritime road from India Ocean to Pacific Ocean, pass through that strait, Malacca Strait. So it becomes Malacca Strait one of the most crowded maritime routes in the world, and it is very important choke point for merchant ships which pass through it. This condition becomes very potential for Indonesia. Therefore, it's necessary to have the right policy and strategy to take advantage of the Malacca Strait. Behind this strategic geopolitical condition, historical factor of Indonesia is the history of the ancient kingdom, as I said earlier, that Sriwijaya and Majapahit is the two kingdoms that was maritime rulers, and it spread influence maritime policy until now to the current government under President Jokowi. And nextly, still in the concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum. So what is the concept of Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum? What is the concept? Okay, so you know that during President Jokowi's inauguration speech in October, for the first time in the office, take the office in October 2014, President Jokowi propelled Global Maritime Fulcrum as his main concern for the next 5 years administration. To be clear and exact, that this strategy is rather a new vision acquired by a state. Meanwhile, its implementation has to be under the still our foreign policy principle, free and active corridor. So its nature in regard to foreign policy, Global Maritime Fulcrum in Indonesian foreign policy, is the need to engage each other with the outside world. So thus free and active principle of our foreign policy is persisted in the current administration. Therefore, and Global Maritime Fulcrum concept is again that it shows the President Jokowi's ambition to regain Indonesia image as a maritime state with the ancient maritime, refrain from any kind of colonialization and a new colonialization. So this concept of geopolitical fulcrum as a reflection of Indonesian foreign policy means that it is victorious for Indonesia for the long-lasting periods of this. That's the spirit and of the concept of the Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum. So next, what is the basic foundation of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum? So there are some pillars forming the foundation of the concept. Number one is to rebuild Indonesian maritime culture, and secondly, to protect marine resources and create food stability by placing fishermen as the organ on this pillar. Thirdly, we give priority to infrastructure development and maritime connectivity by building sea tolls, deep sea port, logistics, shipping industry, and maritime tourism. And number four is we apply our maritime diplomacy through proposed enhancement of maritime cooperation, and we also dealing with conflict management. We are many some cases. We have some in some cases badly at the time with our neighboring country about the illegal fishing, for example. So yeah, we are dealing with that dispute peacefully via conflict management, accepted by both sides. And also our fifth pillar is we build maritime power as a responsibility to protect our security of maritime shipping and maritime security. So that's the basic foundation for your knowledge that this is very important in the concept. So how to implement this concept of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum? We actually to implement this concept, we have some regulation in conducting in dealing with the illegal fishing, overfishing, and naval upgrading, or we optimize our economic exclusive zone, and then also coastal shipping, and we also develop Asia Pacific Maritime Power Alliance. So that's we implement so far the concept of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum on the basis of our Indonesian foreign policy. And so what next? So what is the next contribution of this concept? Yeah, that this concept is very interesting and very productive. As you can see, that we very concrete output, this is the concept that is very concrete to see. So far, we are very successful in running the CTOL program. Yeah, it started in 2015 and finished until 2016. There are 36 sea lanes, tall sea lanes from west to east of Indonesia, as the government has established so far 24 ports as marine link nodes with support of around 47 non-commercial ports and 41 ports now. And also the government targets is to have 100 ports built in 2019, 2 years ago. Now we have provided ship with 3 ship, big one with the big size, and 30 vessels also, and adding to the construction of port by supporting this port with the high standard of the port. And what is the result of the implementation of the this concept? So now very efficient, cost efficient in our hand, because the price of market in domestic environment now is stable because we are now supported by the infrastructure built in the context of CTOL, maritime connectivity inside our Indonesian archipelago. So all economic stability by price stability is okay, So it makes more easier for our Indonesian businessmen or investor to get link up each other among islands. Oh yes, very important. So we have to think what is the correlation now between our Indonesian foreign policy policy and the concept of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum nowadays. Because before that, so you have to know that what is the role actually, the concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum in the context of foreign policy. You know that, yeah, foreign policy is perhaps a realm where the Global Maritime Fulcrum would stand a chance to thrive without significant institutional and technical resistance. With most discussion and dispute, you know, in the region revolving around the Pacific and Indian Ocean, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been able to focus on maritime diplomacy, be it through the defense diplomacy and joint military exercise, norm building, and cooperation based on shared maritime interests. This is very important to underline. That's the role. And so since early 2018, our ministry has been putting significant effort into promoting the concept of Indo-Pacific. So emphasizing ASEAN centrality in the ASEAN and the Pacific Ocean, which Indonesia sees it as a single geostrategic theater. So that's the role of the concept in the context of Indonesian foreign policy. So then, what is the orientation of the concept of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum in the context of our foreign policy? What is the orientation concept? It is more outward-looking maritime vision, and its closer examination to reveals the inward-looking nature of our Indonesian maritime orientation. So from inward to outward, that's the orientation of our concept. Although the Global Maritime Fulcrum has been perceived as being a more extroverted policy through its bold claim of being a fulcrum or a nexus between two major oceans, but our Indonesian President Jokowi maritime plans over the last 4 years have mostly been focused on domestic development. Means that we get from outward to strengthen our inward looking. So at the end will be inward looking. So the method of the orientation in implementing this concept more inward, more outward looking, to transform it into the inward looking for strengthening our domestic development. This is the evidence in the, you can see that there is some evidence in the, the main pillars of our maritime diplomacy so far as tools or instrument in implementing our concept in the context of foreign policy. Number one is we embrace leadership in bilateral, regional, and multilateral initiatives. Number two is we embrace a more active role in maintaining peace and security at sea. We try to organize maritime democracy under the ASEAN spirit and for the sake of the best Indo-Pacific, regional cooperations. And also we pursue an active role in international maritime norm building. We have to build a new norm building at sea in the maritime. So also, yeah, we accelerate negotiation on Indonesian maritime boundaries with our neighbors. Also accelerate the settlement of continental self boundaries, and we increase our presence in international maritime organization, any kind of organization in maritime sectors. Also, yeah, that's the things we can share to you about how the orientation concept of our concept. So, and then the next is question is, how is the concept of Indonesian global maritime implemented in line with our foreign policy? How to get in line in the implementation between the concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum and Indonesian foreign policy simultaneously? Yes, yeah. very interesting. We adopt our pro-people diplomacy doctrine. You know, our President Joko Widodo's aim to use Indonesian foreign policy as a strategic instrument for the benefit of Indonesia. Of the various actions taken, giving special attention to build and empower the maritime sector has been the strategic action of President Jokowi's administration. For Indonesia, the vision is inevitably based on various factors, including the nature of Indonesia as an archipelagic country, while the ocean symbolizes a very important meanings in our history, economics, and geopolitics. Yeah. Then our president's commitment to maritime security is also in hand, following the launch of the concept of Global Maritime Fulcrum. Therefore, President Jokowi's maritime doctrine aims to accelerate and evenly spread our economic growth and to make Indonesian economy more competitive and efficient. So it contains plans on how maritime sector could contribute to the country's economy through this concept. And thus far, the concept of maritime fulcrum was fulfilling so far, and it is very successful. And we have to know also, well, what is the actually the opportunity and what is the challenges in the implementation of the concept of Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum. Okay, if you talk about opportunities in the implementation of this concept, there are many. Number one, we can achieve identity as an archipelagic country by securing maritime resources and maintaining territorial sovereignty for our sustainable and independence economically. Secondly, we realize advanced society, sustainable and democratic state based on law. And thirdly, we are strengthening our maritime nation's identity as well as the principle of foreign policy as a basic foundation for the concept of maritime fulcrum. And fourthly, we try always Indonesia as a country with high competitiveness in human resources, in terms of quality of human resources, to achieve high economic development and a progressive and prosperity. And also we strengthen our national competitiveness through the infrastructure with cost-effective facility, cost-efficient facility. And next is we projecting our Indonesian maritime power, advanced and independent nation state based on our national interests. And the last is to create our society based on Indonesian cultural personality. That's the things. What is the opportunity in implementation of the concept? So then what's the challenges then? So yeah, everybody knows about China, South China Sea dispute is becoming the most disturbance in Indo-Pacific, in ASEAN region stability, and it could be considered as the most challenging issue actually, which may affect not only in ASEAN and in the Pacific, but the all other aspect in the region, all other aspect. Yes, we are acknowledging China's assertiveness movement in regard to direct maritime territorial dispute with other countries such as Vietnam, Malaysia, Japan, Brunei, the Philippines, in the South China Sea, and in some extent, Indonesia, under the background of natural resources interest in the South China Sea, particularly in fisheries, hydrocarbon, as well as territorial extension, potentially increase regional strategic tensions driven in the largest part, not only in the region stability order, but also including Indonesia. So we are having interest explore more in the cooperative means and in the very conducive ways, making more beneficial resources in natural contained in that territorial sea of South China Sea in a very peaceful way. The next challenges is, it is non-traditional security threat, including, terrorism, illegal fishing, drugs trafficking, piracy, becomes, increasingly occurred in the Pacific. This non-traditional issue is defined as in my view is a threat potentially emerge from non-military source, which endanger the livelihood and survival of the people and the nation state as well. This issue of non-traditional security varied from not only by that, but in other terms, or something like food shortage, resource scarcity, climate change, irregular immigration, infectious disease like COVID-19, natural disaster, unpredictably to make people distracted. That makes that non-traditional security threat. We are having that challenges how to deal with the concept of geopolitical fulcrum because of that obstacles. And then next, challenge is our shift in globally spectrum of geopolitics. Asia Pacific region becomes the fulcrum. The Indo-Pacific is a fulcrum of global geopolitics. Indo-Pacific is a fulcrum of global geopolitics, defined as a large part of we can see that epicentrum of the strategic strategic global geopolitics in the expanding powers. India and China is in the given geopolitical importance in that Indo-Pacific area also has been determinant factor for Indo-Pacific region as a whole, regardless our ASEAN's Indo-Pacific outlook. But we are giving we are so sure that India and China is a key holder of regional stability, as long as both country as a influential power in the region could be in one position, in the common position to understand how is the importance of Indo-Pacific regional context to make us stable and long-lasting, fruitful environment. So this is quite tough, for that power shift we are dealing with in the global maritime fulcrum context. And then, so what will be our next challenges in the implementation of maritime fulcrum? Some people believe that the most challenging hurdles for this concept of your global maritime fulcrum is from domestic challenges actually in the country itself, particularly in political, economic, and other strategic aspect. But our President Jokowi mentioned there are three fundamentals problem in Indonesia. The first is corruption. Secondly is inefficient bureaucracy, and the last is the infrastructure. It is sounded by everybody in the around the world about Indonesia. But let me tell you the truth that it is not absolutely correct. It is not absolutely, you know, right on that fact. So, in reality, that our President Jokowi has been very successful in combating any kind of, something like, abnormalities in domestic situations. So President Jokowi has, been successful in dealing with all those things, make it in a very, very shape of our Indonesian future. So my president has committed, 100% that there is no tolerance for that such of, destructive action that damage to our national development, national stability. So I want you all, my friend in Pakistan, to understand that our Indonesian development nowadays has been enjoying so much progress and very transformational change in under President Jokowi's in his era. A lot of progress in transformation and innovative changes has been made. So that's very important things to understand for all of us. And the last but not least, before I end my share to you, is we have to know how is the prospect, how is the future of the concept of our Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum. That the current progress of the geopolitical, of the Global Maritime Fulcrum, we can assess in the three realms. Number one is economic dimension and how the concept translates into maritime connectivity and maritime-based economy. Secondly, the defense and military dimensions, and the last is the foreign policy implications. On the economic side, there has been notable improvement in maritime infrastructure, as you know, as I mentioned earlier. Under Jokowi's administration, we are very successful in building any kind of new ports, to build sea land in sea toll from west to east, and we are in advance of constructing other infrastructures related to support the global maritime fulcrum's realizations, and it becomes to be Indonesia as a hub seaport in ASEAN and in Indo-Pacific, link up to Indo-Pacific, to Indian Ocean to Pacific Ocean, and from Asia to Southwest Pacific. So we link up as a on that things, and we become a international hub of sea in the region. So would be in the prospect is very promising that Pakistan can make use of this potential opportunity by encouraging your businessman or your private sectors to be more sensitive to smell very interesting benefits coming into your pocket in very much money by bringing as many as possible your cooperation in business with Indonesia, in particular in that infrastructure project. Not only this one, although also renewable energy project is coming in now, very promising and very encouraging for Pakistan to take part in this particular prospective project. So renewable energy is waiting for you, the project of our Indonesian partner, to get more network with our colleague from Pakistan in this project. And also our industry is dealing with industrial revolution for 4.0 by modernization of our existing infrastructure in military, technical, through encouraging our technical military cooperation. So I think it is very good opportunity by scheme of the scheme of this cooperation in the context of Maritime Fulcrum and Indo-Pacific link up under the transfer of technology agreement, for example, in shipbuilding or in any kind of marine related projects. I think the last but not least, very interesting, and promising and very prospective concept of the GMF, Global Maritime Fulcrum for Pakistan, is human resources development. I think will be more for Pakistan to invest your human resources in Indonesia, and oh yes, of course, in terms of revolution industry 4.0, we are to get together to exchange how to make a good scenario for Indonesia and Pakistan 4.0 relations. I think it is okay, but all depends on our government, because we are think tank. I think we just can only recommend the big boss how to accept our proposal of recommendation in dealing with this this cooperation in the future. I think it's already 1 hour. I share my view on this theme, so I get back to you. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, thank you, Dr. Berlian, for your comprehensive presentation. We will now be moving on to the interactive session, where the candidates, the participants, will be given the chance to directly interact with you if they have any questions. For all the candidates who have questions for you, kindly raise your hand. I will call out your name one by one, will unmute you, and you can ask the question. First, we have a question from Muhammad Ramzan. Muhammad Ramzan, I am asking you to, I'm going to unmute you. Kindly ask your question.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes. Okay, please, Mr. Ram.
Muhammad Ramzan. Thank you,
Mr. Ramzan.
Chief, thank you, yes, sir. Thank you very much. You have given a very wonderful presentation and apprised us about the importance of geostrategic location of Indonesia and the Maritime Fulcrum. My question, actually, I wanted to ask 2 questions, but I will restrict myself to 1 question because the other person may ask further question. The importance of Strait of Malacca. You know, it's all the trade of ASEAN nation passes through this area. And we have seen that there is a conflicting claims on certain islands in ASEAN countries, including China. And we also see that the strained relations due to the conflicting claims over these islands and the role the US is playing in this area. So what do you think that how Indonesia will act, will go in tackling this issue? Because I mean, if we see that any trouble in this area, in the Strait of Malacca, the whole area will suffer, particularly the Indonesia, which is at a key point in this region. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramzan. Thank you. That's very great question, Mr. Ramzan. Do I have to answer simultaneously, or do I have to wait to collect? Okay,
no,
right.
No, you can answer this question first, and then we will move on to the next one.
All right, Mr. Ramzan. I think we have to be smart to smell something strange in our surrounding. You know that something strange in our spending. Not only we have to wait and see, but we have to take some response and action actually. So, our standing point on this particular dispute in the region, that Indonesia tried to downward the high politics issues in South China Sea, yeah, into low politics. We are downwarding that high politics into low politics. How to do that? So we take 1.5 diplomacy on soft power, or semi-hard and soft power. What is the concrete example on that? So we are always organize some dialogue, informally, non-government involved at all. We initiate non-government institution to take part actively to organize an interactive dialogue among parties disputed in their regions. So to make high politics to low politics with the issue of non-political issues, we are forgetting about how the dispute, military competition, militarization, military build-up among countries in the regions that is very sensitive to the national interest of other parties. We forget about that. So we are transform that issue into the low politics issue with soft power issue. For example, we enhancing non-political issue. For example, like cultural relations, educational relations, small and very light issue like technology cooperation. That's the things we have to, that's the things that is our strategy now. Indonesia as a lead of the ASEAN to to transform, to downward the high politics to low politics, to prevent any tension, hot tension, including the US and China as well in this informal dialogue. 1.5 track diplomacy is the key word. That's the things, Mr. Ramzan. Is it okay, Mr. Ramzan? All right. So I think that's the underlining response that we have to acknowledge and take note on the issue raising from the ASEAN and beyond. While on the other side, the Indo-Pacific, we cooperate with the connectivity link up hub within the ASEAN. So that is some abnormality issue out of the beyond ASEAN, such as like South China Sea dispute, should be corresponded with the transformation issue from high politics to low politics. That's my answer.
Thank you, Dr. Berlian. We will now be moving on to our next candidate. We have a question from Saeed Akhtar. I am unmuting you. You can ask a question.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Yes,
yes,
sir.
I can hear you.
I appreciate you for you gave me very comprehensive lecture to all the aspirants. Sir, you know that the Trans-Pacific Partnership was once created by the United States to drag the Pacific Rim countries, but Indonesia was not part. Indonesia was not the part of that Pacific Partnership. So what can you say? What can you explain that? Was that the weakness of Indonesia's foreign policy, or Indonesia's foreign policy is free from any external influence? Kindly clarify and explain it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Said Akhtar. That's very, interesting questions. basically, our Indonesian foreign policy and strategy is not dealing with who and what to do for what purpose for the one side. No, so we are very free and active foundation of principles here in particular. That so any kind of potential opportunity, any kind of format, any kind of type of the opportunity in overseas, always we consider positively, as long as that opportunities seized by our Indonesian government getting much more beneficial for the sake of our Indonesian national development. So why not? We also take part in that opportunity. For example, like CPTPP, CPTPP initiated by the US earlier. That it is very interesting offer. After Biden presidency took the office, so back that US in the TPP with the new revised concept of the TPP, Indonesian government has committed to be a part of the Indonesian as a part of the Chinese RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Partnership. Still, on that commitment, we take part as a vehicle in East Asia Summit for the benefit our developing the capacity of Indonesian national development. But it is not enough if we are only relying on that one pillar or one instrument. So it should be supported by also the other vehicles, such as CPTPP. Why Indonesia see that we don't need to to see any kind of who side you on, because it is, even though it is the US is contrary to China on the CPTPP, but Indonesia government see that it is very beneficial vehicles also other than RCEP to generate national capacity in economic terms, economic perspective for the future. Well, I think we back to our smart diplomacy to know, thinking, to smell something is very interesting into your pocket. So I think we don't see any kind of obstacle of Indonesian policy to join CPTPP in the next future. So there is no any kind of intervention from other parties outside in our national interest, as long as the concept is very beneficial for our cooperation or our national interest. That will be conducive to conduct in the cooperation. That's Said. Akhtar, I think, is it okay, my answer? Mr. Said?
Thank you, Dr. Berlian. Thank you for your expert analysis. Now, that was our last question for today's discussion. Before we end the session, I would like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Adam Tokyo, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Islamabad. Sir, you're kindly requested to share your views with our candidates.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, for this allowing me to to join in the discussions, and certainly I would also like to thank my colleague Berlian for sharing his thought on the Indonesian's foreign policies. I think he touched upon very wide areas of cooperations, but I just want to add to to think in response to the last two questions raised during the discussions. On the last questions on the TPP, I think nowadays the ASEAN's already, Indonesia's already, concluded the RCEP with other, I guess, the dialogue partner of ASEAN. So I think nowadays with the RCEP, collaborations. I think it served as the one of the economic vehicle for the countries in the regions, including the Indonesia, to once again enhance cooperations on the economic relations. And I think it also served as a good a platform for Pakistan at later stage to once again expand the collaborations with ASEAN through individual ASEAN member countries. Berlian already mentions about the importance of Pakistan to look at this. And I guess if you look at the numbers of populations, total combined populations of ASEAN, which is 650 millions together with Pakistan's 220 million, so altogether close to 900 million. This is as a big market. And if you look at also, I guess probably more than 1/3 of this combined populations of ASEAN and Pakistan, they have shared values of Islamic values. So I think this is also one additional element which can be expanded in enhancing the bilateral cooperations between ASEAN and Pakistan. So Pakistan can do it using a two-pronged approach, one by institutional approach using the framework of the ASEAN, whereby the Pakistan's now in the process of the application for the observer, a full dialogue partner. But simultaneously, while waiting this full dialogue partner of ASEAN, then Pakistan also can use bilateral fronts by enhancing the collaborations with other ASEAN member countries. So complementary each other, looking also at the RCP as a platform for further interactions between Pakistan and the ASEAN. The second thing is relating to the South China Sea, and I think the South China Sea on this regard, the Indonesia, we are not climbing to the South China Sea issue. That's why I think what we are trying has already been illustrated by my colleague Berlian. We're trying to provide a platform for countries to solve this issue, bilaterally. So I think in terms of that, I think the first questions relates with the Indo-Pacific and how it relates with the ASEAN, because it is not, it has nothing to do with this with the Strait of Malacca, which nowadays Indonesia and other littoral states like Singapore and Malaysia, we work closely together. We have a technical working group who monitor the traffic in the Strait of Malacca and Strait of Singapore, because I think it is incumbent upon the littoral states to provide assurances in ensuring the safety of navigations. But the questions I think relate to the Indo-Pacific, and with those issues, I think the ASEAN member countries already announced what we call Indo-Pacific Outlook, whereby once again stressing the importance of Treaty of Amity and Cooperation as a framework, because the principles are there. It is not the continuations, the Pacific and the Indian Oceans, but you have to look at, those two oceans as it is not one unity, but as a continuations approach. So the principles of respecting of sovereignty, respecting of integrity, and also collaborations between countries in the region, I think this is a key which by the ASEAN member countries are encouraging the people. And I think we have the mechanisms, the ASEAN-driven mechanisms like the RMF, IDM, ASEAN's Defense Ministry, Plus, which also can serve as a platform. I think by having a dialogue, it is very important, because with the dialogue, then we can prevent, a misunderstanding, miscalculations on the fields which might, endanger the situation. So I think this is some things that we would like to avoid by providing a platform for other ASEAN and other, dialogue partner, the US, China, I think India, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, those are already dialogue partner of the ASEAN. So we provide the platform for them to having dialogues with ASEAN through the ASEAN mechanisms like ASEAN's regional forum, ASEAN's defense ministerial forums, and other relevant forum whereby the ASEAN then, sitting on the driver's seats, trying to once again to provide a mechanism for this dialogue to avoid misunderstanding, to avoid miscalculations, which might endanger the situations on the ground. So I hope those we will focus those issues and on the next themes of foreign policies, because the next speaker from Gajah Mada universities will be focusing on the regionalisms and Indonesia's foreign policy. Thank you, Palwala.
Thank you, Excellency, for your valuable input. And with that, we will be concluding our today's online session. At the end, I would like to thank Dr. Berlian for taking out time and for joining us, and to His Excellency for joining us, and to all the participants who joined us today. Thank you all, and Allah Hafiz.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And also thanks for the article that you wrote.
Thank you, Excellency Ambassador Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Berlian. Thanks. See you later. Yeah.
Thank you. So all my friends, thank you so much for your attention. So I'll see you next then. So hopefully we'll be in a good health. Thank you. So see you. Bye-bye. Excellency Ambassador. See you next. Bye.
Yo, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.